Welcome, lovely listeners, to the Stories, Fables, Ghostly Tales podcast. And I hope you're having a fantastic Valentine's Day, you lovely people. I'll jump straight into today's story, so as not to keep you waiting. Our story today is all about love, found in the most unlikely place, and twisted by corrupt desire. I bring you the worst day of my life. Well, not my life. This story is brought to you by David Maloney from the book Love, Death, and Other Inconveniences. So turn off the lights, grab yourself your hot beverage, and get ready for something different. The worst day of my life was on December 18th, 2007. That was the worst day of my high school talent show. I'd prepared all semester, and it was my time to shine. Every detail was just right. I had practiced the song Radiohead's Creep on my acoustic guitar until my fingers bled. Even today, the dark splotches on the rosewood fretboard remain. I'd recorded myself singing, enduring the embarrassment of listening back to my nasally adolescent voice, changing one thing and then another, until finally the sound was passable, if not pleasant. I hadn't given any thought to the song. For me, it was a foregone conclusion. It was the song that summed me up. The one that summed up my pain. In my fantasy, people would realize that I wasn't just a weird loner. I was an artist, capable of experiencing the most exquisite and sensitive feelings. When I got on stage, my hands were shaking, and my stomach was squirming. The eyes of my classmates sat heavy on my chest. I played the first few bars, and as soon as I opened my mouth to sing, my voice cracked. I stopped. I heard someone snicker in the audience. I tried again. Another crack. There were more snickers now. People tried to stifle them, but I could hear. One last time I strummed the opening bars and opened my voice to sing. But I couldn't. The sound just wouldn't come out. People were laughing now. I wanted to run away, but I was paralyzed. My stomach sunk, my cheeks were hot, and tears began to sting my eyes. "He's crying!" someone shouted. The tears ran freely down my face, and I ran off the stage to jeers.
What a wuss! Get off stage!
There was a side exit down the band hall corridor, and I shoved the heavy metal doors open, bursting into the cool night air. It smelled like wet grass and cigarette smoke. I turned to my right and saw Emily Rose, leaning up against the wall with a cigarette. Emily Rose was the prettiest girl in school, according to the rules of high school as I understood them. That should have meant that she was popular, but for some reason that wasn't the case. Years later, I'd realized that the other girls were jealous of Emily, an outsider that had moved in from the big city and drawn the attention of every boy in school. The attention was unwanted by Emily, but that hardly mattered to the collective thought of insecure teenage girls. For now though, Emily's unpopularity was a mystery to me. "Hey kid," she said, "what's wrong?" Emily was 2 years my senior, but it still stung when she called me kid. I shook my head and hurled my guitar into the bushes. "That wasn't very nice," she said. "What did that guitar ever do to you?" Nothing, I said. Great. First the voice crack, now the stutter. I heard Miss Andrews announcing the next act through the door, and I realized with sudden horror that Emily must have heard me flub the song. "I came out here to get away from the talent show," she said. "My ears aren't too good, so I can't hear it out here." She was lying to make me feel better, and I was happy to pretend I didn't realize it. "You want a cigarette, kid?" she said. I'd never smoked before, but I slowly nodded. She held one out and I took it. She tried lighting the end, but the flame gutted out in the wind. "No, you've got to do it like this." She grabbed my hand and pushed my fingers together, bending them as a shield against the wind. This time the cigarette stayed lit, and I coughed so powerfully I almost threw up. She laughed, but it was a different kind of laugh than the ones I just endured from my classmates. It was a kind laugh. "Take it slow, kid," she said. She took a long draw on the cigarette, and the warm red glow of the cherry lit her face. I'd never in my life seen someone look as beautiful as she did right then. She walked over and picked my guitar up out of the bushes. "Let's go somewhere. I want to hear that song." Those were the days when a touch of the hand was an electric shock, a moment of eye contact, a violent throb of the heart, the days when I still believed that if the right person loved me, all of my problems would be solved. And as far as I could tell, that person was sitting across from me now. We sat Indian style on the carpet of her bedroom, me awkwardly slumped over my too big guitar and her leaning forward in eager attention. Her green eyes shone in the dim yellow lamplight as I plucked out the first few chords. I began to sing. My voice was shaky, but it didn't crack. "When you were here before, couldn't look you in the eye. You're just like an angel. Your skin makes me cry. You float like a feather in a beautiful world. You're so fucking special. I wish I was special." I racked my pick hard across the strings in the pre-chorus riff, and then Emily's voice, steady and clear as a bell, joined me. "But I'm a creep. I'm a weirdo. What the hell am I doing here? I don't belong here." I set the guitar down, my hands shaking too violently to continue. "Why'd you stop?" she asked. I didn't finish my sentence. Emily looked at the floor, then back up at me through strands of hair that had fallen over her face. "Do you ever feel like—" She trailed off. "What?" I said. "Nothing." She bit her lip and seemed to decide something. She leaned in and softly pressed her lips against mine. Her hair brushed my face. It smelled like lavender shampoo. I closed my eyes, and there was nothing in the world but the softness of her lips and the smell of her hair as the strands gently swept my cheeks. Our lips broke, and my world of bliss dissolved back into the patchy yellow light of Emily's desk lamp. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. "Hear what?" "Shh, listen." I could hear footsteps on the gravel outside. "Is it your parents?" I asked. "I don't have parents," she said. "Just my dad. You need to hide." "Why? We weren't doing anything bad, we just—" Emily kissed me on the lips again and shoved me into the open closet. I fell onto a pile of old coats. I scrambled to get back up, but Emily was already sliding the slotted wood doors closed behind me. I could hear the front door open and close, and then Emily's door as it creaked open and Emily's father stood in the doorway. I couldn't see his face through the half-inch horizontal slits, but I could hear his voice perfectly. It was the deep, rugged voice of a man who'd smoked for many years. "What did you do?" the voice asked. The voice was flat and calm, although it might have held just the barest trace of anger. I didn't do anything," Emily said. Her voice had moments before been steady and clear, but now it was trembling. "Don't lie to me, girl," her father replied. "The lies are written all over your face. You look just like your mother, like a proud slut." I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't mean to." The slap rang out loudly against the quiet night, and Emily tumbled to the floor. I gripped the neck of my guitar tightly. "Didn't mean to?" he asked. "Didn't I tell you not to lie to me?" "Yes, sir, Her father had sent his foot into her stomach, knocking the air out of her. He picked her up by the hair and threw her onto the bed, fumbling open the buckle on his belt and sliding it off. He lashed it across her thighs, and she yelped in pain. I could feel my face growing hot. He lashed her again. My hand poured sweat, slick against the neck of my guitar. He lashed once more. My ears rang, my heart jackhammered in my chest. "Take off your pants," he said, fumbling drunkenly with the buttons on his own. "Daddy, please, He swung the belt across her back, and this time she screamed. I could take no more. I kicked the doors open and swung the guitar as hard as I could at his head. It connected, and the wood splintered with the twang and vibration of broken strings. One of them lashed out and struck him in the cheek, and red blood began to blossom from the gash. Mr. Ross stared dumbly at me for a moment before swinging the belt at my head. It caught me in the ear, and the side of my head exploded with pain and noise. I hugged the carpet and felt the belt whip down on my back. I rolled onto my back and swung the broken neck of the guitar wildly, slashing Mr. Ross across the belly with the jagged edge. He roared with pain and dropped his knee into my stomach. The air disappeared from my lungs, and Mr. Ross knelt on me, lacing his fingers around my throat. My face was hot. My eyes felt like they would pop from their sockets at any moment. A black haze drifted over the world, and I began to grow dizzy. Where had Emily gone? I was faintly aware of a loud noise. Was it a train? An explosion? No. It was Mr. Ross, screaming in my face. His hands weren't around my neck anymore. They were reaching, grasping for something unseen on his back. The cool night air rushed into my lungs. It was a thin, wooden rectangle. It looked like... No. It was a knife handle. Emily was backing away from her father, shrinking into the corner of the room. He had pulled the knife out of his back, and he held it in front of him as he walked towards her. Spit bubbled at the corners of his mouth as he let out a tangled grunt of pain and rage. I felt something cold in my hand, and I realized I was still holding the broken guitar neck. I staggered to my feet and planted the broken wood into the fat of his back. He grunted in surprise and dropped the knife, but he didn't turn around, instead leaping on Emily like a lion might leap on its prey. His hand squeezed tight around her neck, her face went red, then purple. My heart sank as I looked at the bloody knife, gleaming in the yellow lamplight. I didn't want to do it, but I had no choice. I picked it up and plunged it into his back. His hand slackened a bit, but he didn't turn around. His eyes bulged out of his head, purple veins standing out against a red neck flushed with blood. I stabbed him again, and his grip released. He grunted one final time and slumped over to the side. I fell on Emily, rubbing my hands on her face. But it was no use. She wasn't breathing. I ran to the landline, hands trembling as I punched the number in. 911. Come on. Come on. I sat by Emily's bed in the sterile white quiet of the hospital room. The paramedics had been able to restart her heart, but she'd slipped into a coma. And when she'd wake up, if she'd wake up, was anyone's guess. Her father was dead. I had been coming every day for 2 weeks. It was winter break, and I had nowhere else to go. Nothing else to do. I was alone. Friendless. Today was a special day though. I had read about something online that might help. The article said it was good to talk to comatose patients. It said that if they could hear you, it might help to keep them attached to the physical world. So today was the day I would sing her Radiohead's Creep. If anything could reach her in there, that would be it. I tried to work up the courage to do it, but every time I opened my mouth, my vocal cords twisted into a knot. Trying is the scariest thing in the world, because once you've failed, you can't pretend that everything's going to be alright anymore. I took a deep breath. closed my eyes and laced my fingers through hers. They were warm. My guitar was still shattered into pieces, and all I had was the sterile beeps of the heart monitor to keep time. Slump-shouldered and shaky-voiced, I began to sing. Whatever makes you happy, whatever you want. I wish I was special. You're so fucking special. My hands racked imaginary strings as I strummed out the pre-chorus riff, and the heart monitor's beeps became a solid line of sound. Emily was dead. When I got home from the hospital that day, a shiny new guitar was waiting for me with a big red bow on it. The hospital had called my mother and told her. I picked the guitar up and turned it over in my hands. It felt clunky, alien. It wasn't my guitar. An ugly rage began to bubble up inside me. My head was pounding. My ears were ringing. I saw red. I screamed, and tears stung my eyes as I smashed the guitar on the floor over and over and over again until I was winded, collapsing on the ground in a pile of tears and broken wood. My mum swooped over me, and we cried together for hours. A few days later, I came home to the same thing. Except, it was my old guitar that had been pieced back together. It was covered with splotches of blood and nicks in the wood. Pieces had been replaced, and yellow lines of wood glue seeped out from ugly scars in the wood. But it was my guitar. I thanked my mum, and she kissed me on the forehead. When she came away, her eyes were wet. I picked up the guitar and took it to my room, sitting on the bed and cradling it in my lap. As I stared down at it, something amazing happened. The strings began to vibrate and indent in the unmistakable cause of Radiohead's Creep. I closed my eyes, and my voice was steady as I sang with Emily for the last time. She's running out the door. She's running out. She runs, 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 runs. Well, lovely listeners, I hope this story was a memorable one. Worst Day of My Life Indeed, by David Maloney, and holy crap, that is one tough kid. He might not be able to sing, but I'll tell you what, he can swing a guitar. Have a fantastic Valentine's Day, and give your loved one, or those you care about, the biggest hug you can. And tomorrow, I'll have another Valentine's story heading your way for this Valentine's week. And on that somber note, it's that time. This is the place where stories live, and you tale-tellers come to listen. Enjoy your day or night, and join me every weekday for our creepy tradition. And as always, till next time.